Do you naturally support the products made in your own country? According to surveys, most people say they do. By American, by European, by Australian, the slogans are loud enough. Then you hit the supermarket and your hand reaches for whatever's cheaper anyway. You just want the best deal wherever it's from. You might say, come on, it's normal to pay lip service. But if you ask the same question to a Japanese person, they'll tell you they do choose Japanese products even if sometimes cost 30% more. To them, made in Japan means craftsmanship, precision, obsession with detail, the whole aesthetic. But the question is, are Japanese products really that good? In 2011, a documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi blew up the whole Japanese craftsman image worldwide all over again. The story followed an 85-year-old sushi master who spent his entire life chasing perfection. He became an apprentice at night, scrubbing floors and drains, boiling bath water for his master. Told he to get a touch on eggplant for a decade. So how does he cook? Before serving octopus, he massaged it for nearly half an hour. Out of hundreds of tuna, only the very best cuts made it onto the plate. He even adjusts the size of sushi based on whether you're a man, a woman, left-handed, or right-handed. I've no idea if all that made the sushi taste better. And to be fair, the documentary never says this kind of obsession creates a world quality products. It doesn't have to. You watch that and your brain just fails the rest. 300-year-old cedar shop, family of tailors, generations of dedication. One skill, one lifetime. You connect the dots yourself. Generations obsessing over one thing equals insane quality. Made in Japan became a promise of incredible products. But you know what? Go back 500 years to Edo period. The craftsmen were at the bottom of the social status, even lower than peasants. Only families with literally no other option sent their kids off to apprentice. Life was brutal. Getting yelled at, beaten, publicly humiliated. That was just Tuesday. Before becoming a full craftsman, most apprentices spent well over a decade working for free while living under the master's roof. No saying anything. Then in 1729, a guy named Ishida Baigan came up with a new idea. He argued that honest, diligent craftsmanship wasn't just a way to make a living. Work hard enough, a craftsman could be just as honorable as a samurai. And that's the actual birth of what we now call Japanese craftsmanship. Around the same time, the tea ceremony, flower arrangement, and swordsmanship, all telling the same story, not doing the same thing over and over again, was a form of self-cultivation. The misery of craftsmen didn't feel miserable anymore. It became a way of life. You think spending 40 minutes massaging an octopus is simply above flavor? Not really. From 1689 to 1855, Japan spent nearly 2 centuries deliberately isolating itself from the outside world. No foreign competition, no global market forcing craftsmen cut costs or work faster. Whether you made sushi or scissors, your wealthiest customers were tiny groups of domestic elites. And if an massaged octopus impressed those customers more than an ordinary one, then that's exactly what you did. You won the favor of the elites, you climbed up the social ladder. Now you see that? Everything people admire today, generations dedicated one skill, chasing perfection without an endpoint, none of it started as a romantic culture. It's just a survival strategy. So how does it go global? The first turning point was at the Vienna World Expo in 1873. Japan was trying to shake off the West's tall, backward Asia stereotype, so they worked the craftsman story into their ceramics exhibit. Then came another turning point in the 1920s. Another guy named Yanagi Muneyoshi took that story even further. He mixed the Western anti-industrial romanticism with Japanese Buddhist idea of beauty without intention. And you know what happened then? Ordinary handcrafts become a kind of secret, nameless artisan aesthetic. Ordinary craftsmen became anonymous masters, quietly polishing their work, not for money, not for fame, just simply because perfection itself had value. In fact, almost every Japanese craftsman story you've ever heard today comes from this one guy's branding. And honestly, we have to give Japan credit here. They are exceptionally good at learning something from other civilizations and then turning what they learn into something completely Japanese. We've talked about this before. You can have a look at the video if you're interested in it. Then came to the post-war years. From 1950s to 1970s, Japan was rebuilding almost from scratch. Factories needed a huge number of workers who repeated the same task 1,000 times a day. Everyone felt bored and numb. So how to solve the problem? The answer was to make the workers inherited the title of craftsmanship, even if it was originally nothing to do with assembly line. And it did inspire the workers. Repetitive industrial labor suddenly became dignity and something to be proud of. When the story reached its peak in the 1980s, Japanese manufacturing was advancing so fast that Americans started getting nervous. NBC even released a documentary called If Japan Can, Why Can't We? And you know the funniest part? They found out the secret of Japan's high quality products came from a system that Americans taught them in the first place. Kind of accurate, right? Imagine telling an American audience, turns out we taught Japan how to beat us. Yeah, that was embarrassing. So the media also found another better explanation. Mysterious Japanese cultural DNA, something no one else could copy. And Japan, of course, had no reason to argue. Just like Jiro Dreams of Sushi, it never actually says that craftsmanship is amazing. If that's the story you want, Japan's not exactly gonna correct you. And now we come to the real question. If it's not craftsmanship, then why are Japanese products actually good? And why does the answer somehow lead back to America? Of course, Japanese products have an amazing reputation worldwide today, but 60 years ago, nobody wanted made in Japan. It meant cheap and knockoff. There was even a joke in the trading world. There's actually a review term in Japan called yusa, and workers used to stamp products made in USA in Roman letters, hoping people would mistake it for the real thing. Japanese manufacturers tried making the made in Japan label as tiny as possible. That's how bad the image was. And you know how Japan fixed the reputation that bad? They brought in an American statistician named W. Edward Deming, a guy who nobody in his own country wanted to listen to at the time. Japan invited him to teach quality management, and actually his core idea was embarrassingly simple. Check quality at every single step. If something's wrong, stop the entire line. Don't move forward until it's fixed. Maybe you think it sounds nothing special, but that framework ended up changing Japanese manufacturing forever. Toyota took it and pushed it much further, and eventually it became the world famous Toyota production system. Then the real chance finally came. In 1973, the oil crisis hit. Fuel-efficient Japanese car that barely ever break down, are wiping the floor with American cars in America. By the time now the NBC documentary years in 1980, Japanese appliances and motorcycles are already dominating the markets worldwide. Until the moment the world started caring about reliability, Japan has spent 20 years quietly preparing for it. Then something interesting happened. They combined the manufacturing system with the craftsmanship story we just talked about, and made in Japan quietly turns from stuff American taught them into an untouchable national legend. And you know what's the irony? The entire system came from America, and Japan somehow got better at it than America ever did. Ford picked up a few surface level tricks from Toyota. Almost nobody else got the actual core of it. Not because American manufacturing is bad, but the whole system just fits Japanese society in a way that doesn't fit the West. Think about lifetime employment. In much of the Western world, it sounds almost impossible. And you notice something else? Cars, cameras, skincares, all incredible. But when was the last time a Japanese phone brand people care about globally? Pretty weird, right? It's somewhat the same like German products. If you can physically measure it, precision, failure rate, trust Japanese products completely. And if you can't measure it, like phone ecosystem, streetwear, luxury branding, that's just not their game. Actually, the best-selling smartphone in Japan is not made by a Japanese company. It's the iPhone, which means, most Japanese consumers are not buying domestic products because someone told them to. They're buying what they genuinely believe works best. And the topic now comes with a much darker question. If buying something is just a personal choice, why do some societies insist on turning it into a test of patriotism? In some societies, that's not a problem. Take the United States. Someone might spend the morning posting, "Support American manufacturing," then walked into a store that afternoon and buy a pair of German scissors. Nobody really cares. But not every society works like that. In a few extreme places, buying importing instead of domestic doesn't just mean you made a different choice. It means you're basically a traitor. Out there, one particular company barely survives overseas, but gets treated like a national hero at home. Same stories happen in Iran and Russia after 2022. The official line is, "We're buying domestic products because we stand together and resist outside pressure." Sounds powerful, except it does nothing to do with actual people. Iran even had a movement boycotting domestic products. And of course, these are extreme examples. A much more common version is, it's not you must buy local. It's don't buy stuff from that one specific country. For example, in India after 2020, carry a Chinese phone in public, you might get chumped. And in 2019 South Korea, crack open a Japanese beer. The social media will put you in jail. And then there's Turkey. 1 week is French products, the next is Dutch products, then Israel goods. The target changes, the mechanism stays exactly the same. But personally, I don't think any of this nationalist shopping theater could actually change what ordinary people buy, especially for younger generations. They can't even be bothered to pretend to care anymore. You go along with it. You think you're protecting local jobs, defending national pride, whatever. And by the end, someone gets the votes they wanted, someone else holds on to power that's slipping away, and you're left with nothing but a life that quietly fell apart around you. Alright, that's it for today. If you also like digging to the root, hit follow, but dig it deeper next time.